with the past, then we'll do the future to see how far we are from the past, and then we'll touch base with the present. So, go on.
Okay, well, we started with the farm when we started this sketch. It was a small farm, it was diversified, it was run by the family. And the other thing that was interesting about it when we thought about it was a lot of the family wasn't just on the farm, but aunts and uncles and neighbors tended to be in the neighborhood. But that farm was in a neighborhood, and that neighborhood consisted of similar-sized farms. There was a lot of stuff that was freely shared back and forth. Information was shared, labor, equipment, and also financing. One of the things we were dealing with the 50s and 60s, governments and banks weren't very involved in financing farms. In fact, in the 50s, farmers couldn't get loans from them, so you had to depend on a lawyer putting it together with somebody who had some money and brokering a mortgage and that sort of thing. But as well, there was also trading and bartering. There were quilting bees, husking bees, butchering bees, threshing, wood gathering, manure spreading, all those kind of things done where the neighborhood and the farm interacted. But the farm itself, well, we had a commodity here. We had cream and milk to ship. And we sent that off to the local processor, and it was a local processor who turned out butter or cheese. But then they sent back the whey. So the whey was fed back to the pigs and the calves, and the skim milk was fed to the pigs and the calves and the chickens. And the cats who were the mouse control and rat control. But largely, farmers fed ourselves. Had syrup, veggies, our own meat, and we ate seasonally. And we processed our own meat and vegetables often on the farm. And there weren't great piles of dead people outside because we didn't have enough regulations. That's an editorial aside. When we sent stuff to the feed mill, we brought it home and fed it back to our livestock. So the feed mill was within about, maybe 5 miles and was processing the feed that we were feeding back to our livestock. There were no antibiotics or GMOs being added to it at that time. If we lived near town, we had the possibility of fluid milk sales. And in terms of the local processors, often they were local co-ops, Daly, Pine River, or little locally owned places. Other things that were happening around us, well, in terms of information flowing in from outside, there was the Farm Radio Forum, there was CKNX, newspapers, the Family Herald, the Farmer Advocate, and it was the start of the ag rep processes, we think at least. Some of you may know more about that. But there was also just the beginning of some pretty heavy fossil fuel inputs. The province was paving the roads, which when we had gravel roads, it really kind of kept things local, but as roads got paved, transportation became more of an opportunity. Hydro lines were coming in, and with hydro lines came motors. You didn't need the hired hand to help so much. You could put an electric motor where a person had once been. And the fuel truck was bringing fuel to run the farm machinery, and the chemical fertilizers and the pesticides were just starting to really come in. And they were coming in part because the war industries were re-gearing. And so the tank factories became tractor factories and cars. Pesticides were out of munitions and the chemical warfare side of things, and the fertilizer as well. Interesting things about that, in the 60s the farmers could make a living on a small farm. They had status, they also had numbers, so they had political clout, and they had respect in the community. Some other key players in our communities at that time was the school, was a local school. The first central schools didn't come into rural Ontario until about 1963 in Howick Township. Was one of the first. It was the first. Walking distance, so the schools were within walking distance of this family and their community. And that one-room school had local autonomy. A 3-member board decided who the teacher was going to be and whether they could fire or keep them. Christmas concert was a big community social event. Had a little library. An inspector came out and visited. And the annual bus trip was a real exciting event for the local community. It was a time of trust, too. People left their keys in the car. Cash was left in the cream can. When you went to pick up your empty cream cans, there was your payment in it. Payment was prompt. There wasn't long supply chains in which you hoped to hear from your buyer sometime down the road. And other things that kind of happened in this cycle was, of course, nutrients. You're shipping nutrients off your farm when you sell stuff, but when you bring the whey back, you're bringing back a significant amount. A lot of fertility was maintained on the farm and managed through the crop residues and manures. As well as an example, people bought their groceries when they went to town to ship stuff or sell stuff, and We hear a lot about the service economy. You know, you pick up the phone, you hit this number, then you wait and listen a while, hit this number, and then you wait and listen to this number, and now you can't remember which number you're supposed to hit next because this was so long. In those days, you dropped your shopping list off at the grocery store on your way to the feed mill, and when you came back, it was in a box ready for you to pick up. Difficult. Anyway, low carbon, we produced and consumed on the farm and in the community. Wasn't a lot of transportation, but some of the factors that came into play were in World War II, women went out to work, the hired hands went off to war, created a lot of the pressures around labor and industrialization and mechanization. After the war, maybe women weren't as interested in going back to work. Immigrants came as well, and many of them had more experience with a much more intensive form of agriculture coming from older farm economies that have been much more specialized. But before we leave this nice old thing, I think one of the most important things when we think about value chain is what do we produce? Well, we talk about food, we talk about commodities, but what we're really producing is the next generation. And what this did was it produced a generation that had experience with real work in a community, family context, and in a community that had a lot of things knitting it together.
Let's let that sit and hear from the future.
We're the future farmers. Surprisingly, some of the stuff Tony said is a little bit what we were doing, but we decided on a few things because there's less farmers in the countryside. There's going to be one issue, but one of our goals was to figure out how to get food in Huron County, which is a small rural county, into the bigger cities with a less carbon footprint, but doing it as a group. So what we decided was we were doing a Future Farmers Cooperative. So in the center, and I don't know what the name of this model is, but I've been told 100 times and I still forget it. But anyways, all the circles, we're the center circle, and all the other circles overlap and touch each other. So everybody's interconnected within that group, and if we didn't have all the stickies on there, you'd see that. Anyways, there's a group of farmers, and we are in the middle, and we are the cooperative that hold on our organization. Our organization structure was developed. There would be a group of farmers, and we would get together, and we decided that we grew a product. We would all grow a market garden product. A lot of this because our goal is to be a small farmer, but to be a big player. So we wanted to get our locally produced small produce out to the city where the consumer was from Huron County. So anyways, we decided we'd have a market garden cooperative in the center, and then we'd move on and into this circle here. We would, I just got to check my notes over here to make sure I've got everything where I'm going. But anyways, we decided some of the important things that we really needed was a brand or a marketing, because that seems to be what a lot of marketing is today, is everybody wants that brand, the consumer wants a name they can associate the product with. We would develop that brand, and that would be one of our goals, is to keep that inside the brand marketing. I'm trying to figure out where I should start. I'm going to start in inputs, sort of. Start in my circle and work around here. So anyways, there's always the dollars that are involved in farming, which is getting a lot more now. But because we are a market cooperative, we're going to share the cost, but we still would likely have to initially look for outside financing. And our future goal over here would be to have internal financing, something similar to Tony talked to, where the farmers would fund each other. And we'd also work on doing our own risk management program. We'd also become self-insured within this circle. So you can see how it all kind of interrelates. Equipment tools would be share equipment and among each other. We would think, because we are such a large group of market gardeners here and a diverse group of farmers, that knowledge, consulting, and technology can be provided. So everybody would we would decide who has the special, unique abilities within our group of people, and we would break it down. Each person would, somebody would be in charge of production, somebody would be in charge of transportation, labor, management, and keep building out from there. Anything we felt we couldn't do, we would consult in, but we would be hoping that the bulk of the work could come from the people within the cooperative. Within this circle, there's your labor, there's your facilities and infrastructure, there's seed and fertilizer, there's land, and there's marketing and promotion. So the land we decided would come from collective farming, so we would hope all of us could bring something to the table land-wise, and that would all feed back into the center. Up here, we've got kind of, once we got our farm started and we were growing our product, we were looking to see how can we make this into more of a business model, how can we make more money, how can we extend our group out so that everybody gets a little bigger piece of the pie in the end. One of the problems with Market Gardens is very little money. It takes a lot of labor and time and effort, and everybody within the Market Gardens all seem to have our farm jobs today to actually farm. So we're trying to eliminate those off-farm jobs or internalize them so that everybody gets a big enough piece of the pie that they can live within the structure. Anyway, some of the ways that we looked at making our brand more popular and how to make a Market Garden more feasible is to use extended season. So we actually will have greenhouses and we'll be growing longer into the season, starting up earlier. We'll have storage crops, so we've got the ability to store, and we'll also have the storage facilities to store that crop. Fresh produce in season. We also looked at, because we're future-based, actually producing our own biofuels and then selling them within our cooperative. So our cooperative would be supplying biofuels to other people. Within the biofuels, we're hoping to have our own innovation within our structure. So we would be producing products and taking them out into the world and telling people what we want. We'd also be taking our own seeds, our own natural fertilizer, our compost, so we'd be selling our own seeds. So we'd be growing, along with growing our own food that we sell within the cities. We'd also be taking seeds to sell to other producers and keep going out. We talked about carbon credits, so where we'd actually sell carbon credits to people in the city and prove to them that this is what we're doing on our farm to reduce our carbon footprint. So then we would try to bring income into the structure doing it that way. Food literacy and education. So our other goal was to teach people about how eating healthy and eating fruits and vegetables. 1 minute? Into that. Anyways, so that's another circle here. And then down here, how do we get our product out to the countryside, out to the city? So we were going to do internal distribution, so we'd have our own transportation network to make sure that all our food was getting to the city. We'd have internal processing to further process our products. While we're transporting to the city, to the farmers market in Toronto or London, we'd also be taking our CSA boxes and our good food boxes with us, and they'd be all getting distributed out then. A portion of our food would go to the food banks in the city in the end, and we'd also wholesale directly to the retailers. Up here, I think as I said earlier, we'd have shared risk, shared profits, risk management would be shared, internal financing and self-insurance. And we would be aiming for fair integration and responsible use of our resources in the future. Did I cover everything?